Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, February the 6th, 2019. We called to order. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Tillman.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Schrein.
Here.
Ms. Baker.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay. And is there any public comment this morning, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
All righty. And if I could have approval of minutes from the January 16th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the January 16th, 2019 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if you could read the first matter referred to committee, please.
Resolution number 2019-0030, making an award on requisition number 42083 to Advanced Server Management Group in the amount not to exceed $1,121,800 for print management operations for the period 1/1/2019 through 12/31/2021.
Okay, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Mike Chambers with Public Works, and I have here Mike Young, and I also have Jim Sievers, our print shop manager, with us as well.
Okay. And if you could explain this resolution?
I will explain the resolution. It's a long-term solution. I do have a short PowerPoint presentation I'd like to zip through as well.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And then I'll go through it quickly and certainly leave plenty of time for questions.
Real quick, does council have, I see, there's a print operation management packet here? Okay, we do. Okay. It's the one with the print management operations on it. Okay. Okay.
So briefly, here's the agenda. Just going to go over the business driver, the analysis, the solution, our roadmap, and then go down, take a look at the expenses. Good. Yeah. Sorry. The real thing driving this whole management, this whole proposal we're coming up with now is the print shop has, over the years, the work has changed, the workload has changed. As budgets cut, so does their work. Our goal has always been to make sure we can maximize the workers that we have along with the work that we have and kind of find that happy medium to go through that. What's happening lately now is there's capital outlays that are coming up, and on the next page you'll see that they're getting close to about $900,000. Technology changes. In addition, we got the copiers now that are doing more and more things. These copiers that we have, people are printing. You got electronic communication. There's a whole bunch of advances that are kind of hindering our shop. And once again, our shop can only do so much ourselves. No matter what we do, we are going to outsource items as well. We don't have the presses or the machines to do everything that we really need to do. And quite honestly, nobody does. In addition, the equipment, like I said, is getting older. Our workforce challenges, once again, as budgets get cut, people's orders are getting cut. And I mentioned before, the copiers are replacing a lot of our work as well. And then I think we feel the best opportunity, as we're doing now, is to kind of come up with a solution to utilize our workforce, utilize the equipment we have, and also utilizing outsourcing to solve the county's needs in the future. One of the things that we've noticed over the last 3 years is I've had 3 individuals retire. I had one person in FMLA. We have not replaced them in anticipation of this solution. We know that this solution is going to help us meet current and future needs. So as we continue to lose bodies in the print shop and the work's not there, we can rely more heavily on this solution or less on this solution. As I said on this next page, the average age of the equipment is 13 years. We have one piece of equipment we can't move. Unfortunately, through an employee error, a blanket was slid through the machine and it cracked it. And this is a very expensive piece. I believe it's around $500,000 for this piece of equipment. It's kind of, if it gets moved again or shifted, that piece of equipment will probably be out of service. And it's one of our main workhorses. So the question came down to, and that was one of the drivers as well, do we invest that kind of money in technology that's continuing to change, or do we look for another solution, which is what we're proposing today? In addition, the cost to replace, I said, is $900,000. We do estimate it on an annual basis. We are outsourcing about $350,000. When I get to the financials on the last page, you're going to see that $350,000 is the same $350,000, but we've allowed for potential savings. It's going to be in the solution. So, and I'll go through the finances a little bit further. Right now, the workforce, we're spending about $472,000 a year in salaries. With this model, as people retire, I can probably not replace 2 more individuals. when that time comes, if through retirement or if they move on. And one other thing that's not included in all this is there's annual repair costs. Just like the copiers, there's maintenance costs. These things have to be kept clean, they have to be maintained, and that's expensive. The solution, and I'll let Michael chat briefly on that.
Sure. So there's an innovative solution out there that we found from a local provider actually in Cuyahoga County, and we'll just jump to it. So it's a software as a service model. All of the activity that the print shop will be doing will be more or less driven by this solution. ASMGI is the provider. It'll allow the county to participate in the actual design. So the people that they still have on staff that does the design work will work collaboratively with the operations vendors that are supporting the solution to build the design. The county will sign off on the design, and then it'll go out for every print job will go out to be competitively bid. Then the county will authorize the winner, and then the operations will move on. It'll improve the overall ability for the print operations to be able to deliver services. They won't be waiting on commodities or anything like that they do today, because all that now is going to be part of the service provider as each job is being generated. It'll avoid, like we talked about before, it'll avoid the capital expense. It'll address all the workforce challenges. It also supports the county regionalization effort. Once this is up and running, Public Works has the option to deliver this service to any of the municipalities in the county if they so choose. Okay, and it's also one-stop shop for any accounts payable, account receivable. So ASMGI will handle all of the back office activity. So if we have 100 vendors that are participating in the print activity, whoever wins the award, all we do is write the check to ASMGI. ASMGI takes care of paying the vendors on the back end. Okay. The actual platform is called Day Winner Platform. Okay, the roadmap for it is the first 6 months, we'll get the environment set up with ASMGI. We'll get a pilot. We'll work on the current outsource activity. We'll take 20% of the activity that's currently being outsourced by the print shop, and that will be part of the pilot group. Then within 6 to 18 months, we'll get the rest of the 75% of the activity up, and that'll have the framework then for the internal operations. So what Mike was referring to, if any of these large presses just suddenly die, then since the framework will be there, all that work can seamlessly get transitioned over to this solution. So we'll be in a position to address that and avoid that capital expenditure. And then the complete transition will be done within 2 years.
Okay. So what we're here today to just give you a rundown once more time is we did a formal RFP. It closed back in June of 18. There was 17 proposals pulled, and there was only one submission, which is ASMGI, which is what we're here today. And on this particular slide now is what we're getting into is what the costs are going to be. It's $41,800 for the one-time implementation costs. On an annual basis, we're going to pay the $50,000 for the license. Now, as I mentioned to you before, we spend about $350,000 outsourcing on an annual basis already. That $310 you see there is now that $350, hopefully recognizing the $40,000 savings that we believe we're going to get by increased competition. One of the things that we go through right now is we go out to bid a lot of times on our jobs. It goes out to 30 or 40 vendors. We come back with 1 or 2 responses. We're hoping to improve that. We're hoping to get a much greater response and get outside this area. Having said that, the technology allows for us to continue to allow Cuyahoga-based county to get the discounts. It can go SBE, it could DBE. We can change that software, program that software any way we want so that we can still implement the county's rules. So the 310, once again, that's annually. So if you take the entire contract value at 1.1 million, 930,000 is stuff that I already outsource. So the difference really is the 50,000, 150,000 for the software, and then the one-time fee of 41,800. Since then, like I said, there's been 3 employees that I like to refer to that we have not replaced. So that's more than going to offset, the $210,000 of this trial run. I did meet with the Inspector General. I informed them that, we're going to try this software solution as a pilot program. The contract does give us the option to cancel this at our convenience. So that is something that, I'm very interested in to make sure the executive was interested in that as well. So if we get down this road and it doesn't work out, we're not committed long-term to all this money. I'll go back to continue to do the solution we have now. But the problem is those equipment, those repairs, that one machine can't be moved. So we need a long-term solution for the future. And quite honestly, many organizations are getting out of having their own print shop. I mean, most of them are doing an outsource of one type or another. So that's pretty much the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions. On a side note, we have met with the union membership. We've met with the union leadership. We've explained to them what we're trying to do here. They understand that the workload is decreasing. They're supportive of it. We assure them that we're going to maintain as long as we can the roles that we have.
Okay, thank you. Quick questions about the elimination of jobs. How many jobs would be eliminated?
There's no jobs being eliminated. As people retire, we just won't replace them.
Through attrition, then?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many do you anticipate over the next couple of years as far as that goes?
Right now, I have 6 employees. I figure we can get down to another 2. We are always going to need the designer to take your vision and incorporate it into the software. So Mary Chris, Jonathan, I also have Jim and Brittany. They also oversee the copiers as well. So those 4 would stay. Technically, I'm looking at 2 more possible.
Okay, and then as far as the contract itself, you discussed an opt-out. So when would the county have to inform ASMGI of opting out of the contract?
I have it right here. Pardon me. County may terminate in order 30 days. And then whatever work they may have done, or if there's orders in process that I have to pay them for, so we do have that ability.
So anytime within this 2019 to 2021, we can opt out within 30 days?
Yeah.
If things aren't going good?
Yes.
Okay.
For
Now,
convenience now.
I'm sorry?
That's for convenience. I mean, if they default, there's other termination clauses
Okay.
too, but this is an extra safety level.
Right. I had a question about I know what you're talking, the framework. You mentioned that we could go back, we have the framework in place. We can go back if we need to at some point.
Well, if we go back though, then you're gonna have to invest heavy money into capital. So the goal is as machines break or people leave, we can lean more and more on the solution. So eventually, if we go, say 10 years from now, I don't think we want to be in the print shop long-term business anymore because technology is constantly changing.
Okay, and then there's safeguards in place, I'm calling them safeguards, to ensure that there are local businesses that could do this work should they want to do the work. You're not having, I think we mentioned this before, a company in Seattle or in China or somewhere else getting first dibs on this when we could have local.
It's going to be U.S. only, but we are taking all of our current vendors and bringing them over as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll open it up to my colleagues, Mr. Schron and then Mr. Miller.
Yeah, based on your comment, Mr. Chambers, it just sounds to me as though we're on a path that we're going to get out of the print business. And I think that you acknowledge, at least it sounds like that. I mean, it just makes logical sense to get out of the print business. There's other people who do this for a living and they're much better at it. They don't have the capital invested in it. And if we're talking about 13-year-old piece of equipment, I can almost guarantee that all the print shop that you're using are using current technology. They're not using 13-year-old technology. So it's got to be more efficient, more effective, more responsive. When you said you're going to keep designers around, it just seems to me that you ought to get out of that business too and put the design function probably where it belongs, whether it be in the marketing department or be into public relations or wherever. More than likely, whoever's designing that is designing it for some customer within, when I say customer, internal customers within the county. Why wouldn't we just go ahead and move that function to whoever it is that's making the demand for that skill set and embed them right into there?
I mean, that's something that long-term we can consider, but up front, we figure that there's, 7,000 county employees. Someone's got to make sure that we're taking what they want and speaking the language, that they know the language, so we're not green lighting an order and finding out we've done something wrong. So could it be down-term? It's possible, yeah.
It just seems like it belongs someplace that's already asking for that service of those 7,000 employees.
The potential's there, but to Mike's point, there's a certain type of language and skill set required to help work with the vendor to develop the things that they're referring to, right? So could you get down to potentially 1? Yeah, I would not recommend going to 0. over time, because you're going to need that interface
Yeah,
that
yeah,
actually communicates that print shop type language.
No, I'm not disagreeing, you need to have that skill. It just doesn't need to reside in a place where you're supervising it like a print shop. It belongs at whoever it is that's making the demand for the requested printing material.
There's no reason it can't be somewhere
I mean,
else.
that's, in our shop, the folks who are doing the marketing for a concept like you're talking about, whether it's an HR function or whatever, whoever's asking for the printing is going back to the marketing folks and saying, create our image, make sure it looks good, deal with the printers, do a competitive quoting and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't need the supervision that, I assume there's still somebody supervising under this model.
Sure, and keep in mind, as Mike said, that could happen, but we do have some equipment, and our commitment is to, if we can do it competitively and cheap, which I think we can with the machines we have, we'll keep running them until we can't. And then that's when we can lean, like we said, heavy or slow on the software.
Yeah, it just seems to me we're going to, the decision to get out of it is inevitable. It's just a matter of what the timing is. I mean, I've always found that if you hang on to a product or a process to the 11th hour, you maybe would have been better off just saying, we're out of that business.
And when we get the pilot done and his group is all trained and we have the vendors population all set up, if we start seeing the level of savings at some of the interviews that we did see, they may want to get out of it sooner than later.
Yeah, if we're going from what we were down to 6, down to 4, it's inevitable that we're going to get down to 0 at some point and have those functions being just dropped off wherever they are. Because, I mean, remote copying, remote printing, it's also going to probably, an awful lot of it's going to come directly from my desktop directly to the printer. I'm not even going to go through somebody like this.
And keep in mind the business needs. Some people might need emergencies. I mean, we want to be prepared for it. And you're right, a lot of this stuff can get done very quickly. But, you know, like I said, we can progress as we need to.
Okay, well, I think we're better off to at least acknowledge that that's probably where we're trending and not try to create an illusion we're going to be in the print business. We're going to be out of the print business someday, sooner rather than later, I'd be willing to bet. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Chambers, did I hear that we're going to be out of the print shop business in 24 months, or is it going to take longer than that?
No, I don't know where that's not true. No, our commitment was we're going to continue going with the machines we have. It's going to probably take us a good year or so to even figure out and make sure we're up and running. And you know, like I said, if this isn't going the way we thought it is, we're going to cancel this thing. I mean, and then I'm not committing to that, no.
And am I correct that even if eventually
That's the transition. Okay.
we get out of the print shop business, that we're still going to be using copiers for a good number of print jobs?
Well, I think you're going to see that the technology of these copiers and it's getting cheaper. Yes, I think that's part, and I wouldn't say it's all, but there's still massive runs that I know our print shop can do much cheaper than the copier contract. But that is a direct, you know, competition with us. Also is electronic communications. You know.
And of the print work that we currently do on an annual basis, can you tell me what the current breakdown is of how much worth of printing we do on in-house printers, and how much worth we do on copiers, and how much we do on outsource?
I know the outsource is about $350,000. I can get that for you. I don't want to just quote something and be wrong. So let me work on it. And the copiers is a completely different contract, which, you know, is coming up at the end of this year or mid-year. So
We're going through the RFP process for that right now.
Now, as I understand this, we're not only going to outsource the printing, but we're also going to outsource the procurement process for the printing. Is that correct?
that is correct. And I did meet with the Inspector General on that, and certainly we're going to adhere to our county guidelines. They are proposing possibly as a pilot to maybe increase the registration from 10 to 15,000 requirement. I met with them separately, and they may bring that exemption forward. If they don't, then we're going to adhere to the existing protocol that any vendor that spends more than 10 has to be registered.
And the $1,121,800 for the 3-year contract, this includes the cost of managing the process and the cost of the printing itself. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct, yeah.
And how, can you tell me how that breaks down? How much of that expected amount is for the actual cost of the printing itself, and how much of that is what the advanced server management group is going to receive to manage this process?
That's right there.
Yeah, but keep in mind, that 310,000 that we outsource, Jim does a lot of combination jobs. He's able to take what he has and take it to a certain point, and then he can ship that out if he can't do it in-house. There's a lot of combination jobs, but I know the 310, actually it was 350 is what we currently are outsourcing, isn't just all print. It could be supplies. It has other factors in there, Councilman. Once again, I'll have to get you some further details on it, but and Jim, I'll have to defer to him, but there's a lot of jobs that he does both in and out. And there's a lot of times he's got pallets waiting for items to come or pieces or material to come that we can run through this software, which yes, to answer your original question, it will bypass it's a pilot program, will bypass some of our procurement processes, but we're gonna make sure this is set up to follow our procurement processes and our local businesses and things like that, in order to him get his jobs done quicker. There's jobs that he's waiting a couple of weeks for to go through our normal processes before he can finish.
So, that all having been said, what I'm looking to understand is of the $1,121,800, how much of that is what we're paying to manage this new process? And how much of that is for actual production services?
Well, if I can answer that, the software is $50,000 a year, and that's to oversee the software. I mean, there's the 310, which is the 930 over 3 years, is what we would spend anyways to get our products and to, now keep in mind, there's other things outside of this that Jim procures separately. I'm just going with what he's currently outsourcing to try and run through this model, and hopefully we realize some significant savings. Because once again, sometimes we go out to bid, we go out to 25, 30 vendors, we're getting 1 or 2 responses. I'm hoping to increase that throughout the country, maybe, and get something, a lot more vendors.
So, the 310 times,
That's why I said some of them, yeah.
so 310 times 3 is 930.
Correct.
And 50,000 for the software times 3 is 150.
Right.
So you add those two up and you get 1,080,000. So between the two, that's most of it.
Yeah, and then the 41 for the one-time upfront cost.
41. Okay, so that's where it comes from.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, if we cancel, we just, that money's not committed. So the bulk part of this, that 930, just to be crystal clear, is our money that we normally would spend whether we had this contract or not. We're just
Understood.
running it through that. Okay, cool.
Okay, Ms. Conwell has a few questions.
Through the chair to Mr. Chambers, so you said that on the contract, if the money is, how are you paying them? So if you're saying that we can get out in 30 days, I take it we're not paying them up front. What is the amount that we're paying
So
them?
here's the thing, we're gonna pay them the 41,000 up front. That's the implementation, and the annual software, 90,000. In our agreement, we have, since they're gonna be procuring on our behalf, it's 30,000. It's $30,000 that we're going to forward to them. So if we cancel, the contract says that they're going to have to give me back the prorated whatever I didn't spend. So if I send them the initial 30 and we cancel, and we don't spend anything, I'm going to get my 30 back. But it was in order because, once again, it's 48 hours after we place an order we can award. So it's gonna, they're going to be spending money and paying those vendors once we accept it. And so once it gets down to below 15, then we're going to replenish it again.
The money?
Yes. Now, there might be a time where we know, I'm shooting ahead to an election year or something like that, where, we know we're going to have a lot of expenses, we'll certainly, forward the money as needed, accordingly.
And do you have any idea why only one vendor bid?
This is a very innovative solution. While there was a lot of people that it went out to, they're the only ones that have actually designed a software platform that can actually do this.
Are they Cuyahoga County?
Yeah, they're right down the street.
Okay, and so I'm a little concerned about what was the rationale behind the outsourcing? Getting AMSGI to take care of the procurement process?
Once again, when Jim has an order right now, and I'll let him explain it, he's got probably skids of information or material that he's waiting on. Once again, it's just some of the outsourcing I want to make sure we understand is some of the print jobs he outsources already. So that's a given. There's other pieces when we get into the commodities where he's waiting for a finishing piece or a special cutter or a special hole that he can't do, that this solution is 48 hours and we're moving forward. Otherwise, he's looking at potentially 3 weeks before I can give the green light. He's got workers and skids, and I'll let him testify to that, but he's waiting a lot of times to finish his product. This is going to hopefully improve his productivity so that eventually, as people do leave, one more person, the goal is to keep everyone working the best we can, but at some time, this will be more efficient for us. And if we get to a point where we don't, we feel that we're too efficient, we certainly can, through attrition, move them to another location.
Who are we contracting with now? I know Board of Elections is one.
Well, I mean, Jim can get in a bit. It's every county department. As they have a print order or business cards or whatever, they all come through him. There's a form that he fills out. They request information, and that's where it goes usually to the designer to communicate back and forth to understand. I use the word designer. I'm sure there's a more technical name, but to make sure that they're understanding the order before they go out to bid. So it's all the county agencies.
But you also stated that we would get in business, maybe possibly if we go with this system, with other organizations that might want to print with us on our software.
Yeah, the way the system's designed, it's designed so if you wanted to bring in another muni, excuse me, sorry about that. They would work through Public Works, and they would be set up like their own department. They could either go direct or work through Mike's team in order to get whatever print job they have defined, bid out, and then delivered.
That's a year or two down the road.
Yeah, we
We're
wouldn't
not
look at
doing
that
anything
until
till
I think it was month 18 is when we would start looking at that.
Okay. So you're giving this project maybe 18 months to see how effectively it runs.
It's going to take a few months to get everything up and running, implemented. We want to make sure it's working.
Yeah, the pilot, within the first 6 months, we'd have the environment set up, the pilot set up, and the objective would be to have 25% of what's currently being outsourced through this program, right? And then once his team is ready, at that point, they can move as fast or as slow as they want, right? We gave them a lot of latitude, so we actually drug it out for 6 months to 18 months to start getting the remainder of that activity through there so that his team's comfortable with the execution of the solution. But after 6 months, they can move as fast as they like.
And how many other vendors bid?
There was no other response. It went out to 17.
Went out to 17.
Oh, it went out to 17, but
Yeah.
they didn't
Actually,
respond or
17
anything?
people pulled. We had a pre-bid meeting. And
There were about 8 vendors, I don't remember the exact count, they were at the pre-meeting, and most of them said they don't have this kind of technology.
Okay, so AMSGI is not a sole source. They're not the only ones that,
They're the only ones that we could find,
okay.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure they're not a sole source. To your knowledge?
to my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Baker?
Thank you. I think you're the right person to ask. Is there an ERP component to this, given that this is an internal? Is it compatible?
This is completely independent of ERP.
It is.
So if you think about whatever ERP is printing, it
Right.
would go to either our large printers that are down on Lakeside or to the Toshiba devices currently that are deployed in all the different agencies. It's independent of the type of activity that he's referring to.
I will say this, though,
Yeah.
that, Jim will manage work orders, through it. So information will get keyed into our EAM component,
Okay,
for his knowledge and stuff like that, the work orders, because we're eventually looking to, have it out where the public can type in the request to Jim direct and then
Right.
follow up, so more of a documentation, but this system, no.
if I may, just the Public Works component a couple years down the road, will that eventually be something where you would see that collaboration, or no, it will never be part of the need of printing through, say, for example, Public Works? You don't,
I'm not sure. I'm
there's just
following.
not a component that is needed through ERP.
Oh, for the ERP, no. I think with this particular solution, and even in the future, even if we maintain the way we are, Jim does work orders, he's put it in there. Technically, there could be a purchasing component through there, but I think what he's gonna end up doing is whatever the number is, he just drops that number into the EAM now, which then feeds, through the ERP. This system directly, no, but the EAM, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councilman Shaw?
Yeah, for me, it just kind of boil it down to try to think simplistically that we've got 13-year-old piece of equipment that if we run this for the life of this 3 years, they're going to be 16 years old at the end of that cycle. Do we desire to put money into what would be a 13 to 16-year-old piece of equipment, or do we want to utilize somebody's using the, my assumption will be that these folks have to stay on top of their game because they have to be competitive with the world, and they're going to constantly be reintroducing new equipment into theirs. And so whether we want to put money into individuals to run 13 to 16-year-old piece of equipment or join into the new ways things are going. And the days when we used to run a print shop, we used to print a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff is not getting printed anymore, and we're going to technologies like this. So it just seems to me we're at that crossroads. Don't put money into old equipment. Put money into new technology, and you're going to do it through contracting out services. So I'm in favor of this concept.
Okay. Okay, anything else? The only other question I have on this is I see the contract is for January 1st, start of 19, so obviously we're past that. You're looking for this on second reading suspension.
We'd love to get started, so
Yeah.
let's get it going.
So I'll make a motion to move this along on second reading suspension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and this will be put forth to the full council. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if we could have the next resolution.
Resolution number 2019-0031, making an award on requisition number 42355 to Josh and Paper and Packaging in the amount not to exceed $705,000 for janitorial cleaning supplies for the period 3/1/2019 through 2/28/2022.
Okay, if you could just state your name for the record.
Sure, Mike Chambers, Public Works.
Okay, and if you could explain this resolution to us.
Correct. Over the last couple of months at the Board of Control, we have extended our contract for janitorial supplies in anticipation of this particular item here. This was actually one of a reverse auction, and the way it started was as an RFP went out for vendors to see if they could, there was over, I believe, 65 line items of materials and stuff that we purchased to see if they would be willing to bid and send in their bids. When they came in, we analyzed and scored them and found that 3 of the vendors met all the minimum requirements. Some of the vendors, for example, put in this instead of that, and this wasn't acceptable. So after those 3 vendors were selected, we went ahead and did the reverse auction, and it was awarded to Josh and Paper, and it's $705,000 for 3 years. And just to comment a little, it includes paper towels, toilet paper, chemical cleaners, restroom cleaners, deodorizers, floor cleaners. There's a total of 65, but those are kind of the main ones. And we're asking for 705. It's a not to exceed. We're hoping because of this reverse auction, we should probably, I think it's right here, it says about $18,000 a year over our savings over our current prices. So we're pretty happy about that. It did take a lot longer, but this was kind of our first venture down that reverse auction process.
Okay. How much was the savings?
It's about $18,476 annually over the estimated prices we got right now. We're paying right now, so we're gonna if everything stays the same, we're gonna be paying $18,000 less.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from my colleagues? Mr. Schramm?
Are you surprised with something that's truly commodities that you only got 3 bids?
Well, remember 5 people proposed,
Right.
and it's a lot of stuff. And then when you looked at them, some of them were putting substitutes that weren't acceptable to our team. I don't want to get into the specifics because I don't know it 100%, but they had certain chemicals that just wouldn't clean properly and wouldn't disinfect the way we wanted. But the 3 that did, I mean, it's a big contract. You know, we're asking for over 65 line items that fall under that category, so not really. And
so
in all honesty, this is the same vendor that's won it the last couple of times.
The concept of the reverse auction did not keep people out of the bidding process, your belief? Because that's my concern every time when I hear the reverse auction, that eventually we're gonna get less people bidding because they're gonna be dissuaded from getting into a process that drives themselves out of the business, and eventually they say, hey, I'm not gonna bid, I'll leave that to somebody else.
I just know it's our first venture, and you know, from my understanding, it might have taken a little bit longer, but I think the results speak for themselves. So as far as the time and keeping people out, I'm not the person to ask on that one.
Okay, my suggestion is to please watch it, because at some point you might get short-term savings only to find out that you only have one person left bidding because they choose, the other one say, hey, I'm not gonna get involved with that. I'm not gonna cut my margins down so small. I'll let somebody else have that, and eventually we get to the point where there's only one bidder and the prices start to go up. So just please be cautious of that.
Sure, thank you.
And just along those same lines too, it might potentially be a value to look, if you're asking for 65 different types of cleaning products, maybe cut them in half and have multiple vendors for each. And, you know, I know you can dice it, but you're looking, trying to save money, so. Ms. Baker?
Thank you, Chair. Is this for, it says here, to provide janitorial cleaning supplies for various county buildings. Is this for all purposes? So if any agency needed janitorial or needed supplies, this is where they would be pulling from?
This is mainly for the facility teams. It takes care of the kennel, the Justice Center, the Virgil Brown, all of our buildings, all the supplies, all the toilet paper, all of that. That's mainly what our custodial staff utilize.
Okay,
As far as like, I'm throwing this out, if somebody wants hand sanitizers, I think they get that through the office supply commodity. But
okay.
this is mainly for the commercial use of our trades, or I'm sorry, our custodial.
All right, so if I may, so through Board of Control, we shouldn't anticipate seeing a contract with, and I think we had seen something,
You have, yeah.
right?
I've amended this one a couple of times in anticipation of this one, and it's the same vendor, but
Okay.
the vendor actually cut its price 18 grand, which is nice.
Okay, so you're aware of that? And
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I see you're, again, asking for second reading suspension on this.
Yes, due to the timeline, March 1st.
Contract coming up soon here, so I'll make that motion, motion for second reading suspension. I have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you, Mr. Chambers. Madam Clerk, if you could read the next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2019-0032, authorizing a contract with RPF Properties in the amount not to exceed $570,116.92 for lease of office space and parking spaces for the Meadowbrook Market Square Plaza Auto Title Bureau.
Okay, if you could state your name for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. John Myers on behalf of the Department of Public Works and members of the committee. I'm here on 2 items. First, I'd like to seek council's authority to enter into a lease with RPF Properties. This is for approximately 3,000 square feet of space at 22101 Rockside Road, which is between Warrensville and Northfield, almost at Northfield in the city of Bedford. This is our ongoing process of trying to consolidate our auto title offices and in convenient location to the state BMV and a license bureau. So we currently have one in North Olmsted, Parma, and at Golden Gate, and this would be the 4th serving the southeast part of the county. And is, as you heard in the title, approximately $570,000. This is for a 5-year term and with 2 5-year renewable options. As stated, this will provide for greater convenience for the public to be able to have these 3 services co-located in one general location. So we're here seeking authority to enter into that lease.
Okay. Just, what are the 3 services again? I know you said it, but.
The county offers the auto title And then the state offers the testing, the BMV type functions. And then the third function would be the License Bureau. Those are
Okay.
three separate entities.
Okay, and who does the license? The state?
This particular one is, has a close relationship with the state, but generally those are licensed out to independent operators. So it could be any independent operator that the state has a bid process to be able to provide those services to the public.
Okay. Okay, any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Mr. Chambers, the renewable options, are they at the same cost?
No, those will be determined at the time of renewal. Based upon fair market value at that time.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Schron?
With the expectation that we're going to be looking at, my colleague, Mr. Miller, who chairs our finance and budget, very tight budgets coming forward, why would we want to be opening up another office? I understand it's a service issue and it's for the best interest of the constituents, but Bedford to Mayfield, Golden Gate is not an insurmountable trip out there, and we're talking about more than $500,000 than just the leasing of this. So I assume that there's other costs well associated with opening up the title, service, testing, and licensing bureau out there. So yeah, it's always nice to have services in many places remote, but why not be looking at saving the money at this point in time?
Mr. Chair, to Councilman Schron, the finance fiscal officer that has oversight of the auto title have made the decision that this is an ongoing need. This is not a new office. I mean, the physical locality is new, but we currently have had a Southeast office for decades and is currently in a temporary location with the state's offices up Broadway Avenue in Garfield Heights. So it's not new in the sense that we're expanding upon new services. It's replicating what we currently have, but in more appropriate space and trying to stay with the state and the License Bureau as well.
But you're going through a transitional period right now. Isn't that the time when you review things like this?
Yes, and I'm sorry that I can't speak to all those decisions, and I'm sure the fiscal office could answer those more specifically than me. There is a segregated fund that funds this activity, so I do not believe these are general fund dollars as a distinction to call to mind.
All right, so these are not general fund dollars. They're going to support any of these three services?
The other two services we have nothing to do with the funding. This
Right.
particular one, no.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Baker?
Yes, just curious, the 2/1/19 to the 4/30/2024 is more than 5 years, isn't it? It's 5.5? Do I have that right? 19, 20, 23?
I'm counting that as 5 years, so
Okay. Because,
there is, I'm sorry, getting good coaching here. We have some building out here that's taking place before we actually occupy. So we're asking for the lease to legally have effect now so that we can spend money in order to have the space built out appropriately for the county's use.
is that build-out time at no charge? Are you paying?
We won't be paying rent during that time, correct? Not until we have a usable certificate of occupancy and we're actually occupying it.
Okay. If I may, the $570,000 for 5 years is about $114,000 a year. What is that per square foot? What are we paying?
The range is we start off at approximately $18 and some cents per square foot, and it goes up to 21 by the end, which are modest increases. So that's the per square foot cost. And this is Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Baker, this is a full service lease. So they're providing cleaning and other type of services for us at that remote location, satellite location.
And that square footage is 2683 square feet? For
Correct.
the entire,
For the county space, yes.
okay. $18 a square foot for, what did you say, the first
The
5
first
years?
year, and
First
then
year.
it increases up to $20.16 in the fifth year.
Are we, as a county, expending the cost of the remodel?
Mr. Chairman, to the Councilwoman, yes.
Do we have a number of what that remodel cost would be?
Approximately $300,000 will be the cost of the build-out for the site.
And one last question, how long do you think that remodel will take before we are open for business?
We, our current location that we're situated with the state of Ohio, that lease is up on June 30th, and we plan on being in there prior to that date.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, and, what, you have a question? Okay, Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Mr. Myers, and so this, the 570 is our cost. What does the state put in? I'm assuming that we're in the same building and we're paying for our own square footage.
Mr. Chair to Councilwoman Conwell, the state, I don't know their budget exactly because it's completely separate. So this is a strip shopping center. So we have one unit, the BMV has another unit, and the License Bureau has a
So we're
third
not in
unit.
there together.
So there's no overlap. Historically, there have been approached you about a concept of a shared lease, and that was left as this landlord was willing to more desirably work with us on 3 separate leases.
Okay, is that just specifically in this spot? What about our other leases? Or is there a shared?
Mr. Chair, the Councilwoman Conwell, yes, they're all separate in all of our other locations as well.
Okay.
So we each do our own thing, but we've tried to work together so that they're adjacent or at least conveniently close by, so that when people have multiple items related to the automobile, that they can get this taken care of more readily.
Okay, okay. Mr. Strawn?
One of the things that, sorry about that, I apologize, because it just popped in my mind as we were talking about the 5-year, but one of the concepts of the blockchain and blockland is to potentially look at this area itself with the reduction of these services being done digitally and electronically and with a signature. What's our cancellation provision under these 5 years?
We don't have currently a cancellation policy with this. The ability could be looked at in a second and third term, but given the investment up front with the build-out, it was unlikely that in order to get that, there's usually concessions required to be able to have early termination. So in order to get that and maximize the investment we have, the Auto Title Division anticipates to use fully the first term of this lease.
So if technology should develop and the state should come down and say, yes, that the blockchain technology is going to advance the use for automobile titles and reduce the needs for these services being done remotely like this, we're on the hook for the full 5 years.
For the full 5 years. If the state should move, we have some ability to exit earlier. So something not in our control or whatever, but if what you're talking about in a more big picture sense should happen, it likely would be impacting them as well, so that we would have some ability to look at it differently if the state BMV was also impacted by these technological advances.
Well, clearly, that's one of the areas of focus that the state is talking about, and the new technology innovation from the Lieutenant Governor is going to go into this very area. And this is one of the target areas was on automobile titles.
And I can't speak to that, but at the moment, just things within our control, we're committed for the full 5 years at this point, unless the state is impacted by these.
Sometimes
items.
I know that we've had issues come before various committees, and we've been able to plant an idea or a concept that's been able to get embedded into a contract. It perhaps would be to our best interest to find out whether we could embed language of that nature into a contract. Should a body beyond the county decide that they're moving in a different direction, that we would have the ability to cancel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? With that, I mean, obviously, if the contract here is dated February 1st, so in order to do the build-out. I assume you're looking for the second reading suspension.
We would
here as
ask
well.
no funds, the contractor, the landlord is waiting upon execution of the agreement, so the sooner we can get it done, the February 1st date was picked as a anticipatory date of passage with your blessing this month of February.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion for second reading suspension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could read the next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2019-0033, authorizing a purchase and sale agreement with McGregor Pace in the amount of $2,500,000 for property located at 14800 Private Drive, East Cleveland.
Good morning. Once again, John Myers on behalf of the Department of Public Works. This is a 2-second history lesson. This is a property controlled and maintained by our Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Historically, the county has been the one that has held the title. This property has been in our possession since, I believe, the 1980s. This is one of their current facilities that they, due to consolidation and other items, are wishing to dispose of this property that's no longer needed. It was put out for public bid, and one bid was received, and it's market appropriate rate, and it's to the neighboring nonprofit McGregor Pace, which is a strong community member in East Cleveland. And I'm going to call up to speak more fully to the matter Ms. Kelly Petty, who is the superintendent of the Board of Developmental Disabilities, and she'll be followed by Damon Tassif, who is principal in Allegro Realty, which helped and put this property out to maximize exposure and the market return on this sale. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'd at this time like to call Superintendent Petty up for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Kelly Petty, Superintendent of the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Good morning, Mr. Tuma and members of the committee. John gave you a little history lesson, but just to reiterate a couple of items related to this property. The property and the building were constructed in the early 1980s using exclusively Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Board of Developmental Disabilities funds have been used to maintain and operate the building since then. It was initially used as a school for children with developmental disabilities ages 3 through 21. We called it during those years East Cleveland Developmental Center. And then because many school-age children started increasingly to attend their local school districts throughout the 1990s, in 1998, we made the decision to convert the building to an early childhood center instead. So that was used for children aged 0 through 5. And then again, we went through another transition as those services began being provided increasingly in family homes and natural settings. We actually discontinued those kinds of center-based early childhood services in 2012. And the building instead was converted to be office space primarily for our support administrators. That's what the building is being used for today. We changed the name to Forest Hill Center in recognition of the neighborhood there in East Cleveland that it is located. We've appreciated our neighbor, the McGregor Center, for all these years. We've been good neighbors together, and we're happy to see this property be able to be purchased by them for their good use and continue to be well utilized there in the city of East Cleveland. As John mentioned, we are going through some transition ourselves with our adult services program. We do have available space in our other buildings where all of these staff members will be relocated to. And so we feel it's a good fiscal move on our part to dispose of the property and discontinue having to continue to maintain the building and the expenses associated with that.
Okay. Questions from my colleagues? Anything? Okay, I think it's pretty, go on. Ms. Conwell might have a question.
And what is the cost of the building? What is it approved at? The appraised value, that's the
The
word I was looking for.
Appraisal,
appraised.
appraisal.
The appraised bill, I'm going to ask Damon to step up
Okay.
to answer some of the questions about the purchase price. The sale price is 2.5 million.
2.5 million, okay. And if you could just state your name for the record?
Yes, Damon Tassif. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. And you're with Allegro?
Allegro Realty Advisors,
Okay.
yes. I believe we have a presentation. Do we have that? Yeah,
Do we have to? No, I'm teasing, okay. I'm teasing.
would I control it here on this laptop? It's loading up now, sorry.
Did you guys consider this for a title bureau? No, I'm teasing. Okay, I'm done. All right, I'm done. All right.
We need one there, okay?
All right. Yeah, if that's not working, if you have paper copies, that's
Do
fine.
you have paper copies up there?
Okay,
All right,
yeah,
well, we'll
yeah.
just get rolling along then, I'm sorry.
It's this one
Yeah,
here, okay.
yeah, right.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you again. Good morning. I think my job here today is just to walk you through the process that we took in disposing the asset and ultimately the pricing that we came to agreement on with McGregor. So when we talk through the process, I'll speak to the how we developed the RFP, how we released it, registrants, tours, the responses, the scores, how we countered, and then I'll get into a little bit about how we're looking at the market and how we're comparing this asset to what we're seeing in the market in terms of sale prices. As it relates to the development, Allegro worked with the Office of Public Works and the Office of Procurement to develop the RFP. It was RFP number 44146. That RFP was emailed out to a 10-person vendor list by the Office of Procurement and Diversity on Monday, November 19th. Allegro followed up that afternoon with an email to real estate professionals across the region, over 700 people. These are commercial real estate brokers, commercial real estate developers, commercial real estate attorneys, really worked to make sure that everyone knew in the community that this property was available and for sale. That email blast was subsequently followed up with on the 26th. We received 3 registrations for the RFP. The first one was Ann Kahn of McGregor. She was represented by Connor Coakley of CBRE. We received a registration from Veronica Bryan of Prime Vendor. They were not represented by a commercial real estate broker. And then lastly, there was a third registrant who was a confidential buyer represented by Oj Analifo at JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle. We conducted tours for all RFP registrants on November 29th and 30th at 9 a.m. We had 2 tours, Ann Kahn of McGregor and Oj also toured, 2 separate days. We received 1 RFP response. That was from McGregor. The RFP was scored using 4 different categories: property and proposing parties, economics and financing, terms and conditions, intended use and development plan. The property and proposing parties, you were able to score 25 points. The county reviewed the RFP and awarded McGregor 25 points. As it relates to economics and financing, 30 points were available. For the first RFP response, the county awarded McGregor 20 points. As it relates to terms and conditions of their RFP response, you could win 10 points, the county awarded 10 points. Under Section D, Intended Use and Development Plan, 35 points were available. The county awarded 30 points based on McGregor's initial RFP response. The county did counter McGregor. I think there were 3 material points in their RFP that we countered. Obviously, the first one was the sale price or purchase price. McGregor proposed a purchase price of $2.1 million, along with the furniture and fixtures on the second floor. We countered them at $2.75 million, plus furniture and fixtures throughout. Ultimately, we agreed on a purchase price of $2.5 plus furniture and fixtures throughout. 2 smaller edits to the RFP related to when we would exit the building. We're going to sell the building and continue to occupy the second floor. We agreed that we would exit the second floor August 15th of 2019. In addition, they had initially proposed a $1,000 a month utility fee. We looked at our historical spend and burn rate of that building, and we think that the proper amount should be $700 a month. McGregor has agreed to that amount. Okay, I have 2 slides talking a little bit about pricing. The first one is a matrix, shows a lot of numbers. I don't want to drown everybody in data. Just stepping back and generalizing, which is sometimes dangerous, but I think it's important to understand multiple data points. This chart shows real estate transactions throughout Cuyahoga County over the last 5 years for office assets that are 35,000 square feet to 45,000 square feet. Our subject property that we're talking about today fits that category. The most important data point, I think, to understand when we look at this slide is the last column, average price per square foot for these sales. You'll see it ranges, the high end being $115, the low end being $20 a square foot. There's like, I would say a benchmark around $40 per square foot where there's a break point. Everything typically above $40 a square foot is an office asset that you're selling with tenants in place and there's incoming cash flow to the buyer or investor. Anything below that threshold is typically a vacant building. Now we're generalizing, but these are just some good benchmarks for you to understand. If you flip to the last slide, our team pulled out 4 select comps. So we dig in a little bit, peel back layers of the onion, look at actual buildings. And I think there's 4 that are important to pay attention to. The first one, 1906 East 40th Street. This is a building that is, similar construction to the building we're talking about today. It is occupied by a charter school, and it was sold as an investment to an investment group. There was a lease in place, incoming cash flow. That building sold for $44 a square foot. It was on a major corridor and much closer into the city. 3 Gateway in Euclid, similar construction and design, sold for $50 a square foot, had some incoming rents. 150 Springside Drive in Akron, also again, similar construction and design, had some existing cash flow coming in for the buyer. It was $40 a foot. And then last but not least, I skipped over, I apologize, a training facility on Bagley Road. Again, similar construction, similar design when you look at the floor plates. It was sold vacant for about $50 a foot. We feel, after reviewing all of this and before we even began this project, that the property is likely valued somewhere around $40 to $50 a foot. This building in particular sits on a lot of land. There's a good number of acres there. We have ascribed a $25,000 valuation per acre to raise the value of the building by about $150,000. So our projected market value for this transaction was somewhere between $45 and $55 a square foot. We negotiated in the RFP a price of $60 per square foot. I think this represents a very good value for the taxpayer of Cuyahoga County and the Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. I think it laid it out very nicely, and I agree with you. I think it's a win-win for everybody. So, any questions? Okay, we have Ms. Baker and then Mr. Schron.
That the 2.5 million, in addition to that, was the furniture?
The furniture is included.
Is included.
In the transaction, correct. Now, Board of Developmental Disabilities is taking some of the furniture out, some of the technology out, but they're leaving a certain amount of it in.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schron.
Just so I understand who the parties are, do you work for the county or work
I
for the board?
represent, I'm representing,
Simple question.
yes.
Sorry.
I have a county contract, correct.
Okay, so you work for the county.
Yes,
And so the county is paying you for services?
correct.
And how do we get reimbursed out of the proceeds of this?
Okay.
Oops,
Sorry.
open it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nicole English with Public Works. So we have a
Lawyer
current
question.
contract with Allegro as our real estate advisor. So when the BODD came to us and wanted to sell the property, we said we have Allegro on staff. So they get compensated through commission for this property. However, the county is taking administrative fee out of the closing, which
you
is
go.
similar
You answered
to
my question.
what
Thank
we
you.
did on the last one.
Okay. All right.
I think I raised the same question the last time.
Correct.
That
And
there should be administrative fee for the time and energy that we're putting into
And
it.
legal.
I see a lot of, legal,
We get a lot of legal
all the
work
things
on
that
our
we're doing on behalf of the board. Not that I'm trying to take money out of your pocket, but there is costs involved for the taxpayers
Right.
on this side too. Thank you.
Yeah, and as part of when we were negotiating with the BODD, they understood that we agreed to a fee coming off, and so when he was negotiating the price with the buyer, they knew a bottom line number that they were going to get back.
Okay, and that amount is covering our total cost with Allegro?
Allegro will separately be paid out of the closing, out of a commission.
Yeah, but I mean, our fee and all of the charges back are covering any kind of internal costs the
Yes.
county has to help prep the sale.
Including some insurance that we've been paying throughout the year, so we have a calculated cost that we've been covering the building under our own insurance. So
Okay.
that's covered too.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Miller?
How much is the county's commission?
I believe it's in the resolution, $125,000.
5%?
Okay. Ms. Conwell?
Cheap.
Chair, do we know what McGregor's going to use the space for?
It will be used for outpatient therapy type services and office space. They currently lease another location to provide that service, and so they're moving it to this building instead.
And they have all the land. That was the cost, the $125,000. All that land that the building sits on is theirs too now.
Now, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schron?
So we'll be moving from a non-taxable entity, I assume you were not paying real estate taxes on it, to a taxable entity in regards to activities that'll go on inside there?
I don't know if McGregor pays tax or not.
They're a nonprofit?
Might be a number.
Oh, all right.
Maybe.
I was hoping all
Sorry.
right. Hope we're getting a win-win out of it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Without further questions, again, this being a real estate contract, what's the time frame on this as far as moving this along? What are you guys looking for here? Somehow I had a feeling.
Sorry, we'd request second reading suspension because McGregor Pace is eager to close on the property.
Okay, sure. So I'll make that motion, motion for second reading suspension. Could I have a second? Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could read the final resolution.
Resolution number 2019-0034, authorizing the appropriation of real property for reconstruction and widening of Sprague Road, Phase 1 from Webster Road to West 130th Street in the cities of Middleburg Heights and Strongsville.
Okay, and I understand there's a proposed substitute
Correct.
for this as well. Okay,
Do they have to accept it? Do you have to accept the proposed?
yeah,
resolution
yes,
first?
we'll
Sorry.
have to. We probably just should discuss the
Okay.
resolution itself.
So Nicole English with Public Works. So I'll give you why we're proposing a substitute too. So we are acquiring property for Sprague Road. We're widening from 2 to 3 lanes. There's 2 phases of the property. And this is phase 1 from Webster to West 130th. Phase 2 is 130th to York. So there's 108 properties total. When we were acquiring the property, we split it up in 2 phases. We internally are acquiring 20 parcels ourselves, and then the other 88 are being done by a consultant, just to save some costs, that we had some staff availability to do that. So when we initially put the resolution in, the person on my staff who is acquiring the property was going on maternity leave, so she put in what she knew on hers were needing to be acquired. So there was 3 in the initial resolution, 3 parcels that were going to go to appropriation. Last week, our real estate consultant came to me and they had their final list now of what needed to go to appropriation, which was an additional 17 parcels of the 88 they were doing. And so we decided, instead of coming twice within a month or so with the same project, with the same ask, we would combine them. And so that's why you see a proposed substitute that now went from 3 parcels to 20 on the acquisition. So what this is we have 108 parcels total. Most of them are temporary takes, $300, $600. There are some people that we have not been able to get a hold of. We go to visit them, we send certified mail, they send a letter that says if you don't respond, we're going to have to appropriate, and still no response. There's some people that have deed issues, you know, so the person who owns the house on the deed has died and the sister now lives in the house, but they never filed it in probate. And so there's a deed issue that you essentially have to file in court, or we can't pay the person who's not on the deed. So there's several different issues. There's a couple of commercial properties at the corner of the intersection that just don't agree with the project and want more money, and we aren't coming to an agreement. And so we're asking to file an appropriation on them. We will continue to work from now, all the way till a time we would get to court to settle on all of these properties. Our real estate consultant has told me she feels that, of the 17 she's working on, she thinks at least 5 probably will settle before we go to court. The problem we have is that we're trying to sell the construction project this spring so that we can start as soon as the weather breaks. And in order to start the construction project, we have to either have settled all the real estate or have filed in court. And so with that, we put a deposit down of the fair market value of the property, and the owner couldn't pull it out at any time and then continue to negotiate. So we're asking for the authority to appropriate all these parcels, and our legal department will do the appropriations and file them in court for us. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, so what happens if this goes through court and they don't get permission to appropriate the land, the
So
property?
you give us approval to appropriate. Once we appropriate, we file an appropriation in court, we deposit the fair market value, and we are allowed by eminent domain to keep working.
Okay,
So that filing gives us the right to do the work.
so it's eminent domain.
Correct.
I've not done this with you guys yet. Okay, so.
Yeah, we've done this. I mean, most projects that we're taking, we did Royalton Road 82 through North Royalton. I want to say we appropriated about 10 parcels. There's still 2 that we're finalizing in court. So it is typical that you'll have these problems. On my summary of requested action, I don't know if you guys get the briefing, but we have specific for every single parcel why we're appropriating. And some of them, like I said, are just unresponsive. You can't get a hold of the people. They think if they don't take the mail, the project is going to stop, but that's not really the case. And then there's other people that have just said, take me to court, I want more money. And they don't give us a reason why they want more money. We can't just keep upping the dollars. They have to give us a rationale, appraisal, explanation. So that's where we are on these, but we hope to settle some more before we'd have to actually go to court.
Okay, and then when is the project scheduled to start?
This spring. So we are scheduled to sell this within the next month to put it on the street for a construction contract. It is locally funded, so it's us, the cities, and we have 50% issue $1. So we are allowed to keep working on the real estate up until the time we give a notice to proceed to the contractor. A federal job, you have to clear the right of way before you can even attempt to sell a project.
Okay, questions from my colleagues? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair, to Nicole, you said 3 parcels went to 20 or 120?
3 went to 20. So 3 were the ones that in-house we were doing that we needed to file an appropriation. And then the 17 came from our real estate consultant. So that's why the proposed substitute went from there was 3 parcels on the original resolution, and we went up to 20 on the substitute. So it's 20 out of 108 that we're asking for
And
appropriations.
so, could you just give me a brief explanation of why the fair market value estimates are different?
So it depends on what we're taking. So they base it on the amount of land that we're taking, how long we're using it for. Most of these that you're looking at 300, if there's a T after the parcel, that means we're only taking it temporarily. It's only to construct. Once we're done constructing, they get all their property back. So those are probably lower values. It's essentially rent to use their land while we're constructing. Then the higher value ones that maybe aren't Ts, which are mostly at intersections, we are actually widening the intersection, adding a turn lane, so we are taking permanent land from them. So those are higher values because we're taking it forever.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller?
So you said there are 108 parcels originally, and there's 20 in the resolution. So does that mean that you reached agreement on 88 of them?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So some of them you'll see on Board of Control agendas, when they come through, it's just they've agreed, depending on the settlement. If it's under 500, we just pay them through a voucher. Anything over 500, you're seeing on a Board of Control agenda. So you've been seeing them over the last 6 months or so.
Okay. Is this widening, is it going to include sewers, or is it just
There is sewer work going on
sewer
too,
work on it?
correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Move for approval on second reading suspension.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a we don't even beat around the bush anymore. So we have a motion and a second for second
Excuse me,
reading.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman, don't we have to do the amendment
Yes, we do
to
have to do
substitute
it.
first?
Yes, let's do
Sorry
that
about
first. So I'll make a motion to accept the proposed substitute
Second.
resolution. We have a motion and a second to accept the proposed substitute resolution, R 2019-0034. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And
I'll renew my motion
And we have a-
to approve for second reading suspension as substituted.
okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposed substitute on second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, members of the committee, is there anything else before the Public Works Committee this morning? No, almost afternoon. Okay, seeing none, we'll make a motion to adjourn. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the opposed, nay, and the ayes have it, and Public Works will adjourn at 11:20 a.m.
Okay.